But I wish there was a way to create a world in which the media were held accountable to what they got wrong. I'm not talking about honest mistakes. I'm not talking about getting, a certain report wrong. I'm talking about we have become a media that so depends on anonymous sources. I mean, we've got the media covered a story this morning. There's a new letter that came out late last night that's anonymous. There is no name signed to it. That's not a news story. When somebody sends an anonymous letter anywhere in America saying that something happened to me and Brett Kavanaugh was, that's what it's a feeding frenzy. And I just think there's got to be some parameters, some boundaries. And I get the free press. I understand the value of a free press in an experiment where men govern other men. I mean, you've got to have accurate and honest reporting. But that's not what the media is doing here. I mean, I go back to NBC News. I mean, NBC News professes to be a credible and legitimate news organization, and they sent out about 3 or 4 or 5 tweets yesterday saying we've got information now that corroborates, Dr. Ford's claim, when they didn't. I mean, it was just dishonest. The word corroborate does not mean what they insinuated it meant. And I think there's got to be you and I are held accountable to what we do. Mm. I mean, if you don't come to work, what happens? I mean, if you suck at your job, what happens?
You don't
if I did this radio show 6 years and nobody listened, guess what? They find somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the media can just kind of make up things. An anonymous source. Well, I just believe there's got to be some boundaries in play that if you're that wrong that many times and you cause that much consternation and dishonesty in your reporting, then something happens to you. Because right now they got carte blanche. If we destroy Brett Kavanaugh's reputation and name and all these things were found to be untrue, well, what's the consequence to the media? Nothing. They just find another conservative. They find another somebody who doesn't believe in their world philosophy and political ideology. They set out to destroy him. See, that's the one thing I've never understood about Trump with them. Trump's not their ideological enemy. Trump's completely malleable. Trump's exactly what they would want. But because he doesn't stand for much of anything in regards to conservative and liberal. But the reason they hate Trump and are disgusted with Trump is because he's a threat to that disgustingly dishonest universe that they've created. I mean, politicians lie and the media lies for the politicians. And nobody was ever held accountable. Why? Because everybody was feeding at the trough of that dishonesty. The media makes money on that dishonesty. The politicians don't have to be held accountable to that dishonesty. And it kind of perpetrated itself. Or just it was almost like one feeding off the other. And along came a guy who told it like it was. We're going to drain the swamp. The game is rigged. Well, I mean, if you go say I'm going to drain the swamp and the game is rigged, guess who you're talking about? Guess who is the swamp? Guess who rigged the game? The very characters that hate Donald Trump. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, all the politicians. I mean, there's always a reason to go back and look at the genesis or the impetus. And Brett Kavanaugh is somebody that Donald Trump put up. He's Donald Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court. And that's why they feel they have a right to lie, cheat, and steal. Because they're stopping Donald Trump's nominee from ever sitting on the U.S. Supreme Court. Somebody asked me yesterday, well, why not the big brouhaha with Neil Gorsuch? Well, I think Gorsuch took Scalia's place. That doesn't really change the balance of the court. You still got Kennedy in the middle, and he's kind of a 50-50 kind of guy. I mean, if you look back at his decisions, he's probably more in tune with the Constitution. That's hard to believe that you'd say, a Supreme Court justice is probably a little more in tune with the Constitution than some of his liberal counterparts. But, I mean, the liberals don't believe in the Constitution. I mean, the liberals in America today do not believe that the Constitution is a relevant political document. They can't. You can't advocate for things they advocate for. You can't stand and run campaigns based on certain things and believe in the Constitution. And what they've decided now, Rev, not only do they not believe in the Constitution, they don't believe that anybody except them deserves due process, deserves the rule of law, deserves the presumption of innocence. Because if they did, guess what? Brett Kavanaugh would be being treated a lot different than he is. We may have hearings. We may even have an FBI investigation. We may have what we're having today 3 or 4 or 5 more times if the Democrats were honestly trying to get to the truth. But the Democrats have shown you, the liberals in the Democrat Party have shown you that their end game is winning. And winning in this instance is stopping somebody from getting on the U.S. Supreme Court. If you got to lie, you lie. If you got to cheat, you cheat. Got to steal, you steal. If you got to be immoral, you be immoral. Unethical, you be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the end game warrants what they're trying to do. They believe in this liberalism, and that goes back to a lot of my debate about it. It's almost religious. I mean, there is no right. There can't be. You can't be a rational soul. I mean, I'm not a member of Mensa, but I'm not a dummy. I mean, if I spend 3 hours a day for the last week digging through information, trying to find out some verification or not, I think you people put a little stock in that. And I appreciate it. I don't take that lightly. I really don't. I honestly don't. Why hadn't the Democrats done that? Because they know the same thing I know. There is no corroboration. There is no evidence. There is no reason other than he doesn't see the world like you do from keeping this guy on the U.S. Supreme Court. Take a break. Back in a minute. Good morning, PD Live 95. Thanks to Schofield's, our Thursday morning sponsor.